Despite our nostalgic idealization of the 1960s, it was in fact the 1950s that were the true beginning of modernity in fashion and the arts, and nowhere more clearly than in the world of male film heroes. It really was a question of move over Gregory Peck and Cary Grant in your immaculately tailored perfection. Come in, the new Young Turks, to take your rightful place on cinema screens across the globe. The stormtroopers who established the beachhead of the new cinema were three very different young stars: Marlon Brando, James Dean, and Alain Delon, two Americans and a Frenchman. And it is the Frenchman who was in such demand that he made very many more films than the other two, and yet has not been mythologized in the way the Americans have. In a sense, it's Delon's fault. After his first film, in French, he was talent scouted by Hollywood for future world stardom, but with the proviso that he would learn English. He went to America, stayed briefly, didn't master the language sufficiently, and returned to France, the base for his acting career for the rest of his life. It was a shrewd move, in fact, as the 1950s were the great period of rejuvenation in the French cinema, which by the 1960s had become known as the New Wave. Jeanne Moreau, Jean Seberg, Brigitte Bardot, Catherine Deneuve. It was a great time for actresses and also for the resolutely heterosexual Delon. With his perfectly sculpted face, all chiselled cheekbones and sensitive mouth, as a young man, Alain Delon was capable of looking both tough and classy. In the bloody and violent film Borsalino, he acted with the other French heartthrob of the time, Jean-Paul Belmondo. They were the yin and yang of young French manhood. Mr. Belmondo, a broken-nosed street-fighting guy, Mr. Delon, smooth but broodingly dangerous. Born in 1935, Alain Delon had a complex youth and upbringing. He came from a broken home and was frequently expelled from school, so he finished his formal education as soon as the law allowed. He joined the French Marines as a paratrooper and saw service in Indochina. Other jobs included being a waiter and also a porter in Les Halles. Delon got his big break as the eponymous star of Rocco and His Brothers, directed by Luchino Visconti in 1960. The film was variously described as shattering and overwhelming. It gave Delon an international profile, which was enhanced 3 years later when he played the handsome young officer Tancredi in Mr. Visconti's film The Leopard. An Italian lady of my acquaintance who worked on the sets of the film said of Delon that buckskin breeches must have been created with him in mind. He looked so perfectly right in them. There were many more films to come. A close friend of Brigitte Bardot, he was engaged to the actress Romy Schneider, who died in 1982, but that did not seem to affect the adulation of his female fans. His appearance on or off the screen played a leading role in the change in men's dress that began in France during the 1950s. He was almost always photographed in what might be called bon chic, bon goût dress, a look based on traditional English casual clothes, but done with Gallic style. Open-necked shirts, immaculate tailoring, and always perfectly polished traditional shoes. Delon became a role model for all the young men who wanted to be subversive in their dress, but not too much. In fairness, with the exception of the hippie existentialism of the left bank, France was still very hidebound then in its male dress codes, and Delon's contribution in pushing them forward was notable, but not spectacular. Alain Delon now spends much of his time breeding racehorses and making rare public appearances, where elderly ladies push and shove to see their hero, who once said, with devastating simplicity and arrogance, "I like to be loved like I love myself." Don't we all?